Hey guys, it's Caitlin Riley.
And I'm Monica Siriagi.
And welcome to Scaredy Chat, a podcast where we talk about all of our childhood fears, plus a few things that are scaring us right now.
Yes, my imaginary friend. From what I remember, her name is Molly. And I didn't know any Mollys growing up, but I now have a real friend named Molly. So now it feels weird. But for most of my life, there were no other Mollys to step on her toes. And we were like the same age in my mind. Like I must have been like 7 to 8, and she was also 7 to 8. And she had red hair, and she wore a white dress with red polka dots on it. And then there was this is the scary part about her. She had a huge, dirty, gross stain on her dress. It was
that's suspicious.
It was like
that's
she looked totally
sus.
normal except for this stain.
I hate this, but keep going, please.
But I wasn't afraid of her. We played, whatever. But she had, it was just like this brownish red big spot on like her abdomen and then like kind of down the side of the dress. And I would talk about her all the time. I would talk to my mom about her, or I would be like, you can't close the car door. Molly's not in yet. All the like kid things. And my mom went along with it, but she told me later that she was really freaked out by the idea of Molly. And she was like, I didn't like that you had this weird girl that was following you around, but I didn't know what to do. So I just went with it.
So your mom eventually told you something kind of disturbing about this girl, right? Did I make this up?
Well, kind of. I mean, it's not as literal as I would love it to be. Like 50 years before we lived in the house, there was a little girl named Molly and she died. It's not like that.
Also, thank God it wasn't. Also, like you did not want that.
No, that I don't know. That'd probably be worse. But my mom kind of decided that she was probably a ghost without any context for that. And I think she did try to figure it out. Like, did somebody like that live nearby? And she never found anything. But the reason I think Molly is still around is because in my sleep paralysis episodes, I see a girl now my age with longer red hair. And she wears like a white nightgown. But in my mind, I'm like, is this the same person? And she's just like aged with me. And I see her in my room and stuff at night. And she's just the most disturbing iteration of her is that if I'm on my back and, when you have sleep paralysis, it's like you're somewhere between being awake and asleep and your muscles haven't woken up yet. So you can't move, but your mind is active. And that's why it's so awful. So I'm in that place where I can't move and I'm looking at the ceiling and there's a girl with the red hair and it's in a braid on the side. And the braid is drooping down towards me, from the ceiling. And she's flat against the ceiling, and she's just staring at me. And she has a lemon wedged in her mouth, and then there's a little bit of juice from the lemon, like coming around the side and like dropping onto my face.
This is absolutely horrific. You're so chill about this. I think we should exercise you in some way. Like, we should really get this dealt with. Like, this should be like top priority because what is that lemon symbolizing? What does that braid mean? I don't think any of that is good. I'm not sure she's not a demon. I don't trust this Molly chick. I think she's being very invasive. Very, very scary. It has to be a ghost. It has to be a ghost.
She doesn't talk. She doesn't do anything weird. She doesn't try to hurt me. We just kind of look at each other. And while it's happening, it's very scary. But, afterwards, I can just talk about it. And it's like, I don't know what that was. But yeah, I don't. And then in The Haunting of Hill House, Nell goes to see a sleep doctor. And I have never really thought about doing that. But when she did it, I was like, oh my God, maybe I should do that. And then I was things
didn't work out great. For Nell, spoilers. She's my favorite character on that show because she has the most fucked up storyline by far. I really did think of you, though, when I watched that. I don't think I told you that, though, because I thought it would freak you out. Sorry, but yeah.
No, it did.
Yeah.
But it was so beautifully done. Like, the whole show is beautiful. And I'm like, oh, I needed to see this. It's important. It's really good. And it's the genre I want to work in. So, of course, I need to watch this. But I avoided it for a long time because it hit a little too close to home.
It's an amazing show, but also you really need to get this Molly out of your house or out of your brain. I don't know. She's like your own like bent-necked lady.
Yeah.
Which is like the thing that she sees in
though,
the show.
I can firmly confirm that she is not me from the future.
Right. That is good. You had to double check. I don't know. Maybe one day you'll have red hair.
And be white, because she's white also.
And be white. Maybe one day. Maybe this is like a separate plane of existence where you look so different, but I don't trust it, and I think you should be afraid. Okay. Not to tell you to be afraid, but I would be afraid. I'm afraid for you now. So, yeah.
Well, that's something we'll work on that. We'll figure that out.
So, Monica, we are talking to a very special guest this week who does not have some sleep paralysis stories, but is sharing some very interesting and also kind of funny fears from her childhood. We're introducing Amy Townsend. She is one of the hosts of the True Crime Recaps podcast. So we have a little bit of true crime, and we have a little bit of fun, spooky, supernatural things headed our way.
Let's talk to Amy about her fears that are grounded a little bit more in reality than mine.
I'm telling you, this girl's real, and you should be afraid.
I can't let myself be too scared because then I will never sleep. So
amazing. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Scaredy Chat. We have the amazing Amy Townsend. Amy is the host, or one of the hosts, of True Crime Recaps. Amy, thank you so much for being here.
I'm so glad to be here with you ladies. I got to tell you, this is like a free therapy session, so I really cannot wait to unpack this stuff.
That's what everybody says, and we are always like, it's cheaper than therapy. Just come on, share all of your childhood fears with us. Amy, can you talk a little bit about, before we get into your childhood fears, a little bit about your podcast and what brought you to that in the first place?
I got into it really, like, since I was a kid. I've always been aware of and concerned about true crime. Of course, when I was a kid, I was concerned about being a victim of true crime. I guess I'm also concerned about it now. But I grew up just sort of being aware of it and thinking about it and talking about it. And then I was that annoying friend that was always had like 5 murderers' names on the tip of her tongue that was like, if you go with that man from the bar, he will be like Ted Bundy, like Kevin Coates, a local horrifying person. And all these people, I was that annoying friend. And then I grew up, I got my journalism degree. I got a master's in marketing. I was, working in an office, listening to podcasts, true crime podcasts. And I'm like, wait a minute. I mean, I'm talking about this already. I might as well, get on a mic and talk about it. And that's where we've come from there. But our show is a little bit different in that I'm one of those people who like to Google like all the weirdest facts ever. And of course, they're always in like 20 different sources. I'm like, why isn't there a show that's just like all the weird stuff? And it's less than a half an hour because I also have like no attention span. So that's what True Crime Recaps is all about. We kind of go into really just an overview of more of the background stuff that more the other podcasts go deeper into that are great. But, there's already those out there. So we kind of just go straight to the really weird stuff.
I love it because I feel like, true crime is super hot now.
Yeah.
Like everybody's obsessed with it now. It wasn't always like that. And you can always tell when you find those like OG people, who are like lifelong true crime junkies. And it just hits different when they're the ones giving the information. So I think that's like one of the best things about your podcast.
I love you for that because it's exactly true. But my earliest memory is of being aware of the Adam Walsh kidnapping.
Now, oh my God. Yes. It's literally such a horrific story.
Yes. Amy, real quick, like give us the abridged version of what happened here.
I got you in 50 words or less. Okay, so Adam Walsh I actually made a note of this, July 1981, he was in Sears in Hollywood, Florida. And with his mom. She was doing some shopping, so she left him to play like at an Atari station with some other kids. And she wasn't gone very long when all of a sudden these kids started kind of arguing over whose turn it was to play the game. So a security guard came over and he was like, what the hell, you kids, get out of here. If you're going to fight, you got to get out of the mall. And they speculated later that Adam, he's only 6 at the time, that he was too shy to say like, what are you talking about? I'm with my mom. I don't even know these kids. And so he got shuttled out of the mall along with these big kids. And of course, they dispersed. They had no idea who he was. And he's standing out there. And a guy, now it's important to note here that this man has never been charged. And in actuality, this case has never been officially solved. But Otis Toole comes tooling up in his white Cadillac, and he lures Adam in with promises of like toys and candy. Adam gets in the car. Horrifying events happen. And about 2 weeks later, warning, this is a little graphic, his head was found off the freeway in like northern Florida. Vero Beach is about 130 miles away. And they never found the rest of his body. Now, Otis confessed, but he recanted his confession later. He did apparently give a deathbed confession saying that he had done it, but officially the police lost all the evidence that could have like connected him to the crime in an official way, and they even lost his car. This is Florida.
What?
And I can say that because I actually lived right near that Sears for 10 years. We lived in Miami, and every time I passed by, I was like, Sears, you bastards. But I mean, can I not say that? I probably shouldn't say that.
I mean, Sears
that's
is
the scene of the crime, or the beginning of the scene of the
come
crime.
on, security guard, are you crazy? But anyway, it's not his fault. Officially. Okay, so but then, and again, I'm not going to get off on tangent here, but just a bizarre fun fact. Otis Toole's partner was Henry Lee Lucas, I believe he's also known as, and he's a serial confessor. So he's the one that's confessed to like 100 murders, all of these things. And Otis Toole is kind of like lumped into that as well. So they don't know for sure. But of course, famously, his father went on to host and create, I believe, America's Most Wanted.
Yeah, which they just brought back, I believe.
Yeah, it is a horrifying case. So God knows how I even heard about it at such a young age. Like, how did these kids even hear these things? But somehow I had that in my mind. And even though clearly I'm not a boy, I wasn't playing video games, but it was just this awareness that like kids can be taken and they won't come back. Oftentimes. And it was at that time I was just like floored me. And I'm a big sister. I've got 2 little brothers. And so I had that responsibility of like, okay, I'll be damned if it happens to me or anyone else. And so I really just was like, any little amount of danger, I was just any strangers, I was like, stay away. We're not really giving off this. I mean, I was born kind of with that whole like Morticia Addams vibe, but I fully cultivated it subconsciously and just really repelled people and still do to this day. But I was like, you know what? That's not going to happen to me or these brothers. And I just spent all this time thinking of like security measures, what I'm going to do if someone comes up to me like, no, the whole thing. And I mean, nobody ever came up to me, but I maintain
if they ever had, they were in for a shock.
Let me tell you. You don't want to mess with that child to the crazy point. Just really, it really was not good for my social life growing up. But I think my friends are safer for it.
Yeah.
Because I was that person, that was like, let me tell you about Ted Bundy. Sit down. Do you have an hour? We're going to talk about why you should not go home with that cute guy you just met in a bar. Like all of that stuff.
Well, I think women, and especially young girls, are taught to be so polite all the time. To, if somebody comes up to you or whatever, never be rude, never be unkind, always sort of be welcoming, smile. And I do think now, especially, that there has been kind of a pushback where, no, especially if you're a child, like if somebody is making you feel unsafe, making you feel uncomfortable, like you don't have to actually put up with that. Like you don't have to be polite. Like you can hurt their feelings, even if they're just kind of like a weirdo and they don't mean any Ted Bundy level of harm. I think it keeps people safer, obviously.
Yeah, because you just never know other people's intentions. You just never know.
Yeah. No, you really don't know. And that's the beauty part of true crime. And I mean, some people, my mom is like, are you traumatic? What's wrong with you? Are you this is full on PTSD just because you talk about it and read about it all the time. And I'm like, no, you know what? It really feels familiar because I spent my entire life worrying about it, thinking about it, reading about it. Because once you know the danger, once you know the worst case scenario, for me, I can better prepare myself for it. I can better say like, oh, that person does not have a puppy in his van. Please back away from the van. You know, I mean, you have to kind of know what is possible. Like you said, it's like anything's possible. These people are capable of the most outrageous shit. Can we say shit? Yeah, the most crazy. I mean, God, it's unbelievable. Every time you say you're not going to be surprised, I'm surprised.
And it makes sense for the era, too, because, like, I feel like in the 80s, everybody was going missing, like, all over the country. And, like, the Atlanta child murders were in the 80s, and how many kids went missing during that?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's such a valid fear as a kid in the time that you could be taken.
Absolutely. And yet, I don't recall any parent, any adult figure of mine ever saying, hey, by the way, if somebody were to come up to you, maybe don't go with them. That was never, like, actually said. I also didn't get the sex talk, but I'm sure they're not related.
I didn't either.
You know, it's funny. I do remember distinctly. I grew up in the 90s. And I remember my mom specifically having a conversation with me. My mom is also kind of like a true crime fan.
Oh, good.
She's so funny because she's one of these people who, if you meet her, Monica, you can attest to this. She's a preschool teacher, was a preschool teacher, very sweet woman, very like pleasant, bubbly. But like we'll be like sitting down or we'll be in the car and she'll just be like, you know, let me just tell you this like crazy story that I read, or, you know, so-and-so, like, was murdered, like, in this crazy, she'll just, like, bust out, like, a true crime story, or, like, let me tell you about this thing I saw on the news that horrific, disturbing tale. But I remember when I was like,
Kaitlin, I gotta stop you right there because, like mother, like daughter, Kaitlin is the exact same way.
I do that
you know,
too.
Kaitlin is super bubbly and like one of the nicest people I know, and then she'll just say horrific shit out of nowhere, and you're like, what? How does this exist in the same person?
It is true. I get that specifically from my mom, but that's where I get it from. And it's so funny because I do remember my mom having that conversation with me early, being like, hey, if somebody comes to school and they say that I'm, you know, I'm a friend of your mom's, I'm picking you up, you know not to go with them, right? Like, obviously the candy in the van. Don't eat candy from anyone's van, even if they are legitimately offering that. But I remember that very distinctly. And I think it's because the 80s happened, and then there was this big pushback away from, like, the latchkey kids. You know, people, you know, really, you had to be home with your kids, like, whatever. Someone had to be home with your kids. All these kidnapping stories came up. And I do think there was kind of, like, a reversal where then it maybe was a little too helicopter parenty. I don't know. Does that make sense?
I don't know. It does make sense, but I'm, like, one of those that I don't have kids, and I swear to God, it's because I just spent my whole life being afraid that something would happen to my brothers. I mean, I'm totally that Gen X, like, nobody was home. Nobody cared. They're like, good luck to you, girl. And I'm like, all right. And yeah, now I'm so glad to hear about these kind of parents like your mom, because come on, that is a conversation for sure. It's just way too easy to take these kids. They're just way too trusting. I have a little niece and I'm like a full on helicopter. I'm like, no, stay away from her. I'm like a psycho. So yeah.
But you care, you know?
She needs that though.
Love.
She
You
needs
know
that.
too much and you care, so.
I've seen too much.
You know too much, you've seen too much, and I actually am very curious about, like, in your pretend plan of if you were to get taken, I would love to know some of the steps that you had, like, ready to go. Because, like, you know, I've heard if you get put in a trunk, kick out the lights, you know, or, which I still don't even know what I would do after that. Like, now what, you know? But
You wave your hand out of the taillight, Monica. So you kick it out. If you can't open the trunk, which is probably the ideal situation. Sorry, I just have to. You kick out the taillight and then you wave your hand, and then that'll signal for help. That's all.
Yeah.
makes sense.
Did you see the Halle Berry movie? It's like, I think it's called 911. She's an operator, and that literally happens. She's following a car and they're doing that.
No, that's such a good. See, I've never seen it depicted on camera before. I just always knew that because, again, crazy.
You're so good. I actually didn't know that. I picked it up from that. Well, I mean, maybe I kind of had an awareness, but then, yeah, it's a very good movie. It's like a PSA in many ways. Like, watch that movie.
Yeah.
For sure.
And then it's like also, you know, in Taken, when the daughter gets taken, she like knows what's going to happen to her. She's like, they're going to pump us full of drugs because they want us to be submissive. Like, she knows what's coming because Liam Neeson is her dad. So yes, I would love to know, like, what was part of your plan if you ever got taken?
I was like a little bit more disorganized. My thoughts immediately went to like go nuts. If anybody comes up to you and tries to like grab your arm, literally just fly into a rage and like start thrashing every ounce of your body and biting and kicking and just really go crazy. Like the person you see on, Cops or something. Like do that and just go crazy. And then if you're still there, just go for, and of course, thank you, Oprah. Never go to the second location. No matter what, make them shoot you right there on the street because you don't want the second location is where all the bad shit happens. So you're like, never do that. And then the other Oprah thing was the keys, We all know holding the keys.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, I'm sure we all still do that, obviously. We all should be. And then, the hand on the mace. But those are all as an adult. But as a kid, all I had was like, throw the biggest tantrum of your life. Start freaking out. Don't be afraid. And I would be like, this is going to get a little deep. But I grew up in the woods in a log cabin, like a real weirdo. So I would be down in the woods. My brothers and I would be like playing down there, whatever. And I would make us have drills of like, you're being kidnapped. What are you going to do? And I'd be like, scream louder.
That's amazing.
You're not loud enough. And they would be like, they're probably super traumatized now, but they would just like have to like get out of, if it was me, if I was the kidnapper, or if my brother was, and we'd have to get out of their grasp and scream for help and then run as fast as you can. And then I had my grandparents' address memorized. They live like 3 states away. I have no idea why I would go there instead of like home, but I come from a broken home. This will be no shock. So clearly I'm like, well, I think I need to go to my grandparents for help. And so these were like the plans. But as I'm thinking back, since we've been talking about this, I'm like, God damn, girl, like you were really thinking about this a lot because even just, on long car rides, if I was done with my book or whatever, my mind would that was just what I would do to amuse myself. Security measures. How am I going to get out of something? How am I going to keep myself safe? How am I going to keep my brother safe? I mean, just crazy. And then it never really stopped. And then, real quick story. I remember the moment. Now tell me if you girls were like, remember this, or if it's probably just me. But the moment when I realized that kidnapping, there was a time when I really thought, you will grow out of this. This is only a fear that you will have to worry about while you're a kid. And as you grow older.
It's in there.
It's in the name.
Yeah.
No. And now we know.
Yeah,
no, this can happen anytime. Yeah. And just kind of remember feeling like, holy God, does it never end? And it apparently never does. So, yeah.
Do you have...
I do think like... Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Kaitlin.
I was just going to ask you, there are some stories where people have escaped from the kidnapper's lair and stuff. And obviously, you don't go to the second location. That's the ideal scenario. But was there any story that you were like, oh my God, this person got out of the kidnapper's grasp? Like, I hope to emulate that. Was there any story like that you were like, oh man, like I gotta take notes on that one?
I mean, I'm sure we probably all have kind of the same, like J.C. Duggar, the Elizabeth Smart, those stories. I don't know that back in the day that I was very aware of anybody actually coming back from that. And I was more focused on the worst case scenario and not trying to like find any sort of glimmer of hope like I probably should have been. So, but definitely my first like, oh my gosh, that glimmer of hope kind of came when... And I apologize because I haven't looked at those recently, but which girl came first? I believe it was JC or was it Elizabeth that managed to get out. But certainly like their stories are just crazy horrific. And of course the Cleveland 3, I mean, all of those girls. And thank God it can happen. But I can't even imagine. I mean, if I was there, I don't know, what would you do? I mean, if you were kidnapped, you were in the lair, how would you...
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so I think about this a lot, actually.
Yeah. I feel like I would like to think, because I have no idea how I would actually behave in this situation, but I like to think that I'd be like one of those long game people, like they start to
That's what I
convince
think,
the kidnapper that I'm okay with this. I'm fully Stockholmed. I'm not leaving. I want to be here. And then one day I'll get the privilege to hold something sharp, and then I will stab them in the neck.
Exactly. That's how I feel too. I would love to really play the long game, the manipulation, slowly over time until they gain, I gain their trust. I say, no, we're best friends. I would never leave you. I'd never choose to leave you. Mm-hmm. You can trust me with the machete. Yeah. Come on. Let me hold the
Yes.
machete. Friends let each other hold each other's machetes.
Exactly. That's so smart. You're giving me so many ideas. I feel like I need to like start writing this down just in case, just to keep it in my memory. Yeah, it's like insane. And then if I wasn't worried about like actual humans kidnapping me, I was worried about my freaking stuffed animals climbing up on my bed and killing me in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Yes, and I really want to talk about that because you have two fears that are so different from each other. Because one of them is very grounded in reality of the times, a sign of the era, like makes sense. The other fear is just like a normal, like weird kid fear that's rooted in your imagination. So yes, tell us about that.
That's rooted in reality. Have you seen Annabelle? That thing is based on a true story.
True. And that doll is messed up.
Monica has a
completely.
thing about dolls also. So yeah, believe me, Monica trusts no inanimate object either. But yeah, stuffed animals haven't come up yet, so.
Oh my God, these things. And I was thinking, like, what were these stuffed animals? A freaking unicorn. Most little girls are like, unicorns. I'm like, keep that horn away from me. I swear to God. That thing is pointy. It will like probably stab me right in the eye. I had like a bear over there. I had this doll that like a distant aunt or something made me for Christmas. And she made these clothes too. And of course, in hindsight, looking back, I'm like, oh my God, that was such a sweet thing. When she gave it to me, I'm like, you have delivered Lucifer right to my bedroom. Thank you so much. Because of course I can't get rid of them. That's just going to piss them off. You have to keep them and be polite. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to bed now. Is everybody comfortable? Is everybody cool? Everybody got what they need? Okay, I'm just going to go to bed. I'm going to go to bed. And then the thing with the doll with the clothes, she had a face on her. I swear, this woman, she was not super talented with a needle. And it was a face like John Wayne Gacy would have embroidered this face on this doll. It was horrifying. And I was always worried because she came with her own set of clothes that I was going to wake up one morning and she'd be in a new set of clothes. And I'm like, I mean, the whole thing, so scary. I blame my father.
What I would love to know, because like Kaitlin said, I also have a fear of dolls. So we are kindred souls. I hate dolls. I hate the one that want them anywhere near me. And inanimate objects in general can kind of mess with me a little bit. What is it about? I get the doll part. What is it about like stuffed animals that you're like, no, I don't love this?
I feel like this is going to sound like so weird, but I feel like it's easier for like the devil to inhabit them. I don't know where I'm getting this. Literally just probably from movies and my crazy imagination, but I just feel like they're too innocent. It's like, it's a lure in a weird way. I feel like everybody loves these things, but it's just that's their plan to get you to like cuddle them at night so that they can, I don't know what they would do exactly. I slept with my blanket over my ear because as everybody knows, that's the protection. You sleep with your blanket. And so I was safe from them, but Lord knows if I like slept with one of them, to this day, I'm like, ugh, that gives me like actual goosebumps.
See, I'm like such a stuffed animal person. It's so embarrassing, but I like still sleep with stuffed animal. I sleep with my fiance and this stuffed animal like in bed, and like sometimes in the middle of the night he'll literally throw it because he doesn't like, I'll be so mad. But yeah, I know what you're saying. I feel like there is something when something is too innocent, it feels like it's so easily corrupted. And I think we see that all the time in movies. So, you know, you have obviously, we bring this movie up literally every single podcast, but like The Ring, it's an adorable little girl who's corrupted and made, you know, disgusting. The Exorcist is same thing. The devil inhabits a little girl who's sweet and pure and innocent. Stuffed animals, though, it's so interesting because I'm sure that there have been stuffed animals that have been like, and
there's a movie out literally right now. It just came out. I keep seeing it on Instagram.
Is it Come Play? Is it that one?
No, it's like My Friend Benny or something. And Benny's like a little red bear.
That sounds scary.
Is he an evil bear?
Yeah.
He's evil? Yeah. I mean,
he has really sharp teeth.
No.
Oh my God, this is exactly what I'm talking about. And girl, if I don't want anything to happen to you, but if anything should happen to you because of that stuffed animal, I want it on the record. I told you so.
You did.
That thing should not be in bed with you. But
it's
you
very
are a brave
embarrassing.
woman. You're a very brave woman.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Scary.
Monica, should we move into chill or chilling?
Absolutely. I was just going to propose that we move into our game.
Cool.
Amy, we've crafted some questions based on what we know about you.
Oh, no.
And yes, and chill is like, down, would do this. Chilling is like, no, this is, why would anybody do that? Hard pass.
Yeah, okay. So chill or chilling. Being in a Huggies commercial with that weird ass talking teddy bear. Chill or chilling?
So chilling. I can't even get the word out.
So absolutely not. No. Would it be better or worse if there's a person inside of the teddy bear, or if it was just a stuffed animal they animated later?
I feel like it would be worse because then that would be combining my two biggest fears in one horrifying furry.
The Huggies person could kidnap you theoretically, and then that's just the whole thing.
Exactly. You're combined. It's like a stranger inside a stuffed animal.
Oh my God.
Okay, here's our next one. Making a Build-A-Bear. Chill or chilling?
You guys are killing me because I haven't thought about that for so long, and now I'm like, oh God, the parts. And oh no, no, that's so chilling.
Well, okay.
I literally have goosebumps. Like my hair is standing up.
Here's the one thing I'm gonna say, and I hope this makes you feel better. I feel like if you made it, you would be its god, and it would owe you everything. So, in Build-A-Bear, I've made quite a few Build-A-Bears in my time. By the way, Build-A-Bear is very fun, but kind of ridiculous.
Do you have a god complex?
I might. But you put a heart, you put a plush heart inside the Build-A-Bear. And I feel like that's supposed to give it life. You stuff it with a heart. And I feel like it's a Frankenstein monster scenario, I just think it's fine. I mean, I guess man turns against God sometimes. In this case, I don't know, have fun.
And this is our last one. Being a contestant on Fear Factor. Chill or chilling?
Chilling. I'm the person that was picked last in PE. I'm not athletic at all. I have zero survival skills outside of just freaking out and, losing my mind. And other than that, I would die. I would just lay, and I would also not try. I would just lay down and die. I was
This was so fun. Amy, why don't you tell us where everybody can find you, what you guys are covering next on your podcast, where they can find your podcast, et cetera, et cetera.
Thank you so much for the chance. So we're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, wherever you get your podcasts. And then you can also find us on YouTube at True Crime Recaps, or on Facebook at True Crime Recaps Videos, on Instagram at True Crime Recaps. Literally just type in True Crime Recaps and you're going to find every platform. And we are starting more IGTV next month. So, and of course, the TikTok is coming. And
Yay.
That will be so exciting for all of us, I'm sure.
We know you loved this episode and you love that feeling of being scared. So make sure you share this podcast with at least one other person that you want to be scared with. And make sure you go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe and rate and review and share it so everybody you were scared with as a kid can be scared with you now. And make sure you follow us on Instagram at scaredychat_podcast. And hey, if you have a scary story that you want the world to hear, email it to us. Send it to us at story@scaredychatpod.com, and maybe we'll talk about it on the show. Scaredy Chat was developed and hosted by Kaitlin Riley and Monica Moore-Suriagi. Produced by Jeff Swimmer. Editing and sound design by Fitz Harris. Theme music by Eric Fashingbauer with samples by Jeff Zahn and Jack Lenz. And Gail Gilman is the executive producer.